So I would say that to stay relevant, I would focus on quality over quantity of references to your website. I'm trying to think of ways specifically for affiliate space because I know it's a little bit different. It's less focused on just the brand name, but again, I would focus on quality over quantity, and I wouldn't hyperfixate necessarily on getting a backlink. The more important thing, my guess, is that just having your website's brand mentioned in authoritative articles is going to be what the key is. Because again, ChatGPT is just pulling off content that's already published on the internet, right?
Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen and I am your host. And today we have a very special guest, Morgan Taylor, who's a co-founder at Jolly SEO. Welcome to the podcast, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Arlen. I'm excited to talk about SEO marketing as it relates to your audience. So happy to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Yes, not a problem, and thank you for joining us. Of course, the topic today, of course, is all things SEO. And before we dive into that, I'm always curious, especially when I talk to founders, how you got started, why you got started, kind of the why and the how. If you can let us know a little bit more about that, I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. So, I think like a lot of business owners, our journey was organic. This is a business I started with my partner, Greg Heilers, and we've just been kind of in it together since about 2017. Originally, then we were doing content, so just blog posts, these kind of things. But as we evolved in that area, we weren't particularly successful, but we did discover what SEO was, and a lot of our clients helped educate us on kind of what they needed and services we could provide. So it just evolved in that way that we pivoted around 2020 to strictly an SEO focus, and more specifically link building. And even more specifically on top of that, what we would call journalist outreach. So that's using platforms like, maybe your audience has heard of Help a Reporter Out. It doesn't exist now.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, it doesn't exist now in that form, but a lot of people still remember that newsletter. And that was one technique we used for building links for our clients. And a lot of our early clients were in the affiliate space. Actually, I'd say that was the bulk of our initial clientele. And a lot of those guys were really SEO savvy, and they helped us discover what kind of link building would help the most and which kinds would hurt, and sort of discovering, this SEO is always changing, right? And what's considered a good backlink. So, a link from a domain going to your URL is always changing, right? But now we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we focus strictly on that. So that's kind of the short story of Jolly SEO, right?
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's interesting to see that you guys have chosen to really focus and specialize on link building. I've talked to a lot of SEO companies, and a lot of them are a lot broader, where they're covering, they're almost kind of full service SEO, where they do, the content optimization, site auditing, they do paid marketing. I mean, they do just kind of a little bit of everything. But it's good to know that, you're kind of niche, and that's your full focus, link building, which is an interesting subject of late, just because it with me, it always kind of comes up, and I've had other people on when we talked about link building before in the past. And one of the episodes that I had, I think this was several years ago, I talked to Neil Patel
Yep.
from Neil Patel Digital. He's a kind of a top digital marketer, and it's still been going for several years now. And that was the topic of our discussion: is link building dead? And yeah, and I guess obviously, since you're still in business and you're going strong, it's not dead. But this conversation and that chatter always kind of comes up every now and then. What do you say to that when people think, all right, is link building going to die at some point? Is the whole concept of the search engine going to change? What's your take on that?
So yeah, I have a few takes, and I've heard that too, and I've heard it about almost every single aspect of marketing and SEO.
Exactly.
I was funny before we started here. I go to conferences, and a couple of years ago, the big topic was AI, and is AI going to take over content, this and that? Are we going to all lose our jobs? No. Most people who have pivoted successfully, just use the AI as an example, use it as a tool that they can supplement their work with. It's not necessarily a replacement. Now, there are certain low skill jobs that maybe AI has kind of made obsolete at this point. Link building is similar. So I think it's not the same space it was a few years ago. I don't think you can just go out and buy links off a catalog of websites and say, hey, I want this anchor text and I want to go to this, URL. It doesn't matter if the URL is just a service page or whatever, super unnatural. Google is more sophisticated than that now. But that said, I think link built or backlinks in some form, or I can't think of a way that Google will make their algorithm work without taking it into account in some form. It is at the end of the day, a very good indicator of your website's trust. Because, if people are referencing articles on your website, referencing your business, that's a good way to tell, hey, these people are authoritative in the space. Now, Google search, and sorry, I'm just kind of running through it because I have a bunch of thoughts here, but Google search itself in the traditional way we see it, I think that is going to start changing. I don't think that means that backlinks are irrelevant, and more specifically, brand mentions of your website and digital PR are especially not, because when you do a generative search, so just typing it in, for people who aren't familiar, just getting an AI answer on search instead of actually a list of websites, it still needs to pull. If you want your brand to be represented in there, it needs to pull from information that exists on the internet. So having your brand mentioned out there, referenced, linked, is going to be a factor there as well, I think. But in terms of link building, I think we're moving more towards a digital PR approach, not in the classic sense of, hey, let's get a sponsored article written and then published all around the internet, but more of, let's actually provide a highly linkable asset, which I would, something that's a very compelling piece of content. Whether it's written with AI or not doesn't matter. It just needs to be a good piece of content that people really want to pick up and use in their pieces. So I think if you're getting your backlinks either yourself or through an agency, and they're doing it, or you're doing it in a very organic way, I think you're going to see results. But the old school plug and play guest posting, I think is going to be a thing of the past. That's my take on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know, these days a lot of people, a lot of marketers and link builders, are still heavily doing that strategy with the guest posting. And I mean, I can testify to the fact, just because, we've been around so long. I told you, we're constantly getting pitched by, link builders, people trying to do guest post exchanges. And, it just depends as far as how we deal with that. It's definitely a strategy people are still going hard on, but I can definitely see where you're coming from. At some point, it's going to change, and just doing that type of thing, just getting a guest post on a particular site, it's not going to be effective. It's almost going to be, depending, it could be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, and we still do guest posts as well, but our policy is we don't pay for them. It needs to be on
Right.
sites that have a real product or service. What That's our
Sure.
other rule too. It needs to be a real website with a real product or service. What I've seen in the past with backlinking is a lot of what was being sold are kind of multi-topic general news blogs that don't really, when you look at the site, you can tell they don't really have an audience. It just exists there to look all right, and they make their money selling backlinks primarily.
Hmm.
um,
Yes, exactly.
that's what I would look out for. A lot of people like yourself, we also get people wanting to do guest posts. I think people aren't
Hmm.
as receptive to that just straightforward pitch as
Hmm.
they were. It would, I think in the future, you're going to need to come with a very compelling piece of content already proposed to be put on the site
Yeah.
rather than the
Yes.
usual link exchange angle or money angle or whatever they might take, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. Now, kind of staying on the topic of trends, we talked a little bit. You mentioned AI, and of course, I think with marketing and technology and
Yeah.
anything internet related, I don't think we can get around the topic of AI. And tools like ChatGPT and Bard, with their impact on searching. How would you say businesses these days need to adjust their strategies to stay competitive? Especially with this AI driven landscape where a lot of people are bypassing Google, bypassing Bing, and they're just going to Chat GPT for every search query.
Yeah.
How do you stay competitive in that type of landscape?
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually recently closed our first deal from somebody who came through ChatGPT and did a search of,
Okay.
hey, what are some
Oh
link
wow.
building? I think their search was something, just to bring up HARO again. They said, what are the best HARO link building agencies? Because people still use that term HARO a lot. And
Sure.
again, we had come up, and I know specifically why we came up. It was from being
Hmm.
mentioned in an article on Backlinko, which is, yeah, you mentioned
Okay.
Neil
Yeah.
Patel. I don't think he's with Backlinko, but it's similarly authoritative. It's Brian Dean, and so
Yeah.
it's
Familiar with him.
really respected SEO article. I'm certain that's why we came up on that search.
Mm.
So I would say that if you to stay relevant, I would focus on quality over quantity of references to your website. I'm trying to think of ways specifically for affiliate space because I know it's a little bit different. It's less focused on just the brand name, but again, I would focus on quality over quantity, and I wouldn't hyperfixate
Hmm.
necessarily on getting a backlink. The more important thing,
Hmm.
my guess is that just having your website's brand mentioned in authoritative
I see.
articles is going to be what the key is because again,
Okay.
ChatGPT is just pulling off content that's already published on the internet,
Yeah.
right? So
True. That's true.
it's it's still at the end of the day going to use almost every factor that Google uses, but
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah. I get that because it's like the bottom line with it is ChatGPT and all of these AI tools, when they're doing real time searches, yeah, obviously they have to have some mechanism for searching that. And the search engines are the mechanism. And as long as that's the relationship, it's not gonna really go anywhere as far as Google is concerned. Yeah, you can bypass Google to go to straight chat GPT, but like you said in your example where you got the customer, um, they did a query, but yet its sources are pulling from Google, and so there's really, it's just a different way of I guess you can say interacting with the search engine with Google. But people that are
yeah,
going to ChatGPT, they're in essence, if they're doing searches like that, they're still they're still interacting with Google. And it's just a different way of doing it.
yeah, and I guess to be more specific, I mean, Chat GPT actually would lag behind what Google has access to because
Okay.
they have to update to the newest version. But I
Yeah.
also wouldn't even, when you think of this stuff, use ChatGPT again, I wouldn't even specifically fixate on what Google is ranking well as a site to maybe be on, because they're really, ChatGPT is just pulling off the internet. It's not
Yes.
even through Google, right? So it's,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I mean, I think if you're doing things well for your SEO with Google in mind, most of that will
Mhm.
probably be reflected in ChatGPT search or any of the generative
Right.
search functions. But again, I think focusing on quality over quantity if you're talking about backlinking or getting your brand mentioned is going to be the safest bet.
Yeah. Yep. I definitely agree. Now, SEO, of course, is a broad topic. There's a lot under the whole um, category of SEO, as we talked about. Your guys' niche is of course, link building, and I deal with a lot of e-commerce
Yep.
businesses and been in the business for such a long time and talked about marketing for many decades, and so um, with SEO, I think just from talking to business owners, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. What would you say is one common, I guess you could say, SEO myth that you've encountered, kind of time and time again amongst your clients, and then how do you overcome it?
Well, I think one myth for sure is that people can't do a lot of the SEO work themselves. It's
Yes.
definitely something you can do. A
Right.
lot of it. There's tools that exist, especially now with AI content creation. You can pretty much just source a freelancer to edit the work that's
Hmm.
generated pretty easily. That's not that
Yes.
difficult for a site owner to manage. If you're getting started, maybe you don't have the budget also for an SEO agency to work with. And then on the
Hmm.
link building end, there are these journalist platforms like HARO, which no longer exists, but there's Quoted, there's Featured. There's all these platforms that if you actually spend a couple hours a week doing pitches to
Hmm.
journalists, you'll come back with good links for your website. So I I think that there's often this myth that SEO is this kind of arcane skill that is going to be difficult to
Hmm.
master for even just a
Yeah.
general website owner. Most of it is common
Right.
sense. If you're putting out
Yes.
good content and getting links from good sites, it's going to pay off for you. And like I said, you can do some of that on your own as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. I think it's, like you say, that's definitely a very big misconception. And I've seen it a lot of times. It can be overwhelming just because there's so much there's so much that you can do. Business owners, I kind of get scared, I guess you could say, just of the word itself. And then when they're thinking about Google and the Google algorithm, which nobody knows for sure how exactly it works, that's what I think what scares people and
Yeah.
why they say, okay, I can't do this myself. I don't know anything about, how we can rank for Google. Let's just hire somebody, but that's not necessarily the case, which kind of leads me to my next question, with regards to, let's say, an e-commerce startup or an e-commerce business just starting to think about SEO and starting it. What would you say? What should they prioritize as far as the strategy is concerned when it comes to SEO? If they haven't done much at all, maybe they've got a little bit of content, they got some blog articles, they're getting a few links. What would you say should be their kind of their number one priority, moving forward?
I would say this could even go to the point before the niche or the website has been purchased. I think you want to be thinking of SEO before you even decide,
Okay.
what you're doing in the e-commerce space. It's a
Hmm.
lot easier. So some of the most successful affiliate sites that I've seen, for example, focus on things like pest control. It's
Hmm.
not a topic that is very sexy. It's not the biggest search volume, but there's not a lot of
Yeah.
competition. So
Right.
I would focus on spaces where there's not a lot of competition and you actually have a realistic chance of locking down the top 5 search results for terms related to what you're doing. Now, if you already have
Okay.
your website and your business, I would focus on content that revolves around those search terms that you can easily or realistically rank for, as long as it indicates buyer intent, right? So it's a balance between like, okay, I can rank for this search term, but if someone who searches that is not realistically going to be a purchaser, it doesn't do you much good. But you need to find the happy medium. Like, is it a search term that if somebody put in means they're ready to purchase today, but is not an especially competitive term, what we call a long tail keyword, right?
Right.
So it's usually going to be something a little more advanced. So for example, to use the pest control, ranking for just the term pest control is going to be very difficult, but ranking for
Sure. Can imagine.
something like, I don't know, controlling rat infestation in California. I don't know. Like,
Yes.
then you're getting that. Then you can really hone in on that, and hopefully that's a term that actually converts to purchases, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Long tail keywords specific to maybe your location, like you said, California, or your city, or a kind of a subcategory of what you offer. Like you said, in the pest case, you're talking about rat infestation. So I get it.
And I would focus content. Keep that in mind when you do content, and when you do content, do it as well as you can. I think that if you are legitimately, put yourself in the mind of the person who's searching in the term that you're trying to rank for with this piece of content. Are they going to come away from reading what you have put up informed, have their question answered, all these things? Because Google is good at detecting that sort of stuff, and that'll help your content rank better. It'll help your site rank better. So
absolutely. Now, kind of going back to what we talked about in your example with the customer that found you from searching ChatGPT, how would you say, as they're becoming more and more, all of these search engines are becoming more sophisticated, and even with the AI tools, when people are doing searches, what would you say is the role of keywords going to change any as we keep evolving, in the next 5 years? Because if people are searching specific keywords in ChatGPT, is it going to be almost the same thing as you're using it on that platform, or is it going to change in your eyes?
And I know what you're saying. And I imagine this could be a point of stress for somebody who's maybe invested a lot into SEO traditionally.
Right.
I think it will come back to focusing, because you're right. If somebody's typed in that keyword or that I just mentioned about rats in California, whatever, if they put that in ChatGPT, they are not going to be given a link to any of your e-commerce products or your affiliate links or anything like that. Of course. But I would lean into building your website's brand. I think that's the best bet. The more you can establish the website as a source of authority in the space, that will end up picking up on the ChatGPT side. Maybe not for every search, but if somebody typed in, where can I learn more about yada yada yada, your site might come up, or where where's the best source of this and that. I can't remember off the top of my head if ChatGPT does source attribution, which could be an interesting angle if any of these do that, because then it could.
It does now. Yeah, they're just now starting to do that. I actually just recently saw this the other day where they're starting to do the source attribution. I don't know. It's interesting though, because I was starting to see this. It was actually just this week. I'm like, I started to see it before where they had a little quote symbol under your result, and then you could click on that and it would give you the result. Now, they're constantly updating things. Now you see a little rectangular box that says sources, and you can click to that, and it'll give you the exact source and take you to that site. So I don't know their plans, or in what cases do they cite the source versus others, because I've done other queries and there's sometimes I don't see any source, so I don't know what's the determination of when when they don't show it. So it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would just say again, I would lean into developing your brand as opposed if that's the area that if you're trying to put resources into staying ahead of chat gpt, I think
Yeah.
it would be wise to put resources into developing your brand and not just your blog posts or your specific pages,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly. I
I
totally
think
totally
that's
agree.
probably a change of strategies, right? In general, like
Yes.
from what I've seen, a lot of people go so far at like affiliate websites. They'll even go so far as to not even want a specific person associated with the brand. I think
Hmm.
overcoming some of this might be helpful in the long run, or overcoming some of the
Yeah.
apprehension.
Yeah. Definitely. Um, well, as Morgan, as we get ready to wrap things up, what would you say with the clients that you've dealt with since your company's inception? Is there a particular SEO win that you guys have achieved for a particular client that you're proud of? And is there a particular a lesson that you learned from it that other businesses can learn from it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one client, actually a good e-commerce example. This is a client they're not affiliate, they sell directly, but
Okay.
it's a lot of the supplies still, mattress retailer, and they
Hmm.
saw amazing traffic gains over the years we've worked with them, and then they ended up selling. But I can say a couple of lessons just specifically to link building and
Hmm.
doing journalist outreach, like through these platforms I was mentioning before. It's stuff you can do yourself. Having a really good figurehead that represents the brand that you can use to pitch these journalists is extremely helpful. In that case, they
Hmm.
had a sleep expert who they could quote, or who we could quote to get them mentioned in these. They I could think of one article in Huffington Post. We got them in
Okay.
legitimately, not a paid article or anything like that.
Sure.
And they had their sleep expert quoted talking about insomnia. These are the really powerful kind of. This was a backlink, but even if it wasn't, it would be a very
Hmm.
powerful brand mention for the
Hmm.
company. And I try to think of what did that campaign do differently from some of the others.
Hmm.
They had a really great figurehead. They had a good brand as well,
Hmm.
and it translated to a lot of success. And I think we ran a good campaign, but I can say that they
Hmm.
it, at least had a 5x in traffic over a 2-year period
Oh
to
wow.
the website.
Okay, that's quite a boost. Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. So that's good to know. So we're talking about figureheads, getting in a figurehead to promote your brand on a larger platform,
yeah,
or an industry expert if you
e-
can, and
exactly.
that can go a long way.
Even if
Okay.
they are not doing going out there and doing that, as long as you have permission.
Yes.
So when you see opportunities to get your brand
Mhm.
backlinked or mentioned, or you're doing outreach to websites, even just trying the old fashioned guest post outreach, if you
Mhm.
have a good figurehead doing that or letting you do it on their behalf, you're going to have a lot more success. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good to know, and yeah, thank you for sharing that example. Well, Morgan, this has been an awesome conversation. I've really enjoyed diving deep
Yep.
into SEO. As we've seen, it's a lot going on in the industry, but it's as we said at the top of the episode, it's definitely here to stay. Things are going to always evolve, but as long as the search engines are there, this is gonna stay there. And as far as I can see, Google is not going anywhere. Bing is not going anywhere, and some of these other search engines are not going anywhere. So I think
Yeah.
you're going to be in business for quite a while, and people still have to get an SEO strategy in
Of
place,
course.
in order
Yeah.
to
I
have
mean,
a business.
even if Google disappeared tomorrow, SEO still exists because
Right.
search isn't just about
Yes,
Google, right? And I know everyone's been trying to
exactly.
hype up Bing for a few years. We'll see
Yeah,
if it
right.
materializes.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'm a little doubtful of my end about that, but you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. See what happens. All right. Well, lastly, before we let you go, Morgan, I always like to switch gears just so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think we would be interested to know.
Yeah, fun fact. Actually, before I got into this job as a business owner, I was a bartender, and hopefully some of your audience can
Okay.
relate to that. It was a fun job, but I just went straight from that into this with no background in it. So,
Oh,
if
wow.
anyone's doing a
Okay.
job like that, where it's service work or whatever it is, and you're wondering like,
Hmm.
oh, am I really, it's
Hmm.
anyone can do it. I think that's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship, right? And
Yeah.
and yeah, so I
Okay.
still do miss some aspects of bartending, but yeah, I'm glad I moved on.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Well, that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that. And that definitely gives inspiration and hope for anyone that's looking to dive in, regardless of their background, like you said, regardless of their education. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. If you've got an idea, you've got the drive, you got the passion, and you have kind of what you want to do. You just got to dive in and go for it. So there's really no limit. So that's awesome. That's awesome testimonial. So thank you for sharing that. Um, and lastly, of course, if any of our listeners and viewers would like to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about SEO, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, well, first I'd recommend you join our Facebook group called White Hat SEO
Okay.
Link Building, where you can find me directly on Facebook or my partner Greg Heilers. Also, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. We do a lot of posts there. And then finally, you can just visit our website, www.jollyseo.com. You can book a call if you're interested in exploring our link building services. We have them all up on the website as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. We'll definitely have the links in our show notes so people can reach out to you and connect with you on your site or the social channels and go from there. Well, once again, Morgan, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the E-commerce Marketing Podcast.
All right. Thanks, Harlan. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.